Are you ready to explore the art of living off the grid? Welcome to our video, Living Without Electricity, what you'll need to make it work. In today's world, electricity feels indispensable, but many people choose or are forced to live without it. Whether you're planning to lead a more self-reliant lifestyle, preparing for emergencies, or just curious about what it takes to go off the grid, this video has you covered. We'll walk through essential tools, resources, and skills to help you adapt to a life without power. From alternative energy sources and sustainable lighting to food preservation and communication methods, we'll explore practical tips to ensure a smooth transition. Living without electricity is a challenge, but with the right preparation, it's not only possible, it can also be empowering and deeply rewarding. So grab a notebook and get ready to learn how to thrive without modern conveniences. 1. Historical context and lessons from the past. People lived without electricity for centuries, and no, they didn't just sit in the dark or freeze to death. Homes were designed intelligently, using materials and techniques that worked with nature rather than fighting against it. They didn't have the luxury of flipping a switch for instant climate control, so they made their homes work for them from the ground up. Take pre-electric era homes, for example. These buildings stayed warm in the winter and cool in the summer without modern HVAC systems. Thick walls made of natural materials like stone or adobe acted as insulation, keeping heat out during summer and trapping it during winter. Strategic window placement allowed for natural ventilation, making heavy summer air more bearable and letting in light without overheating the space. Some homes even made use of thermal mass, where the walls absorbed heat during the day and released it at night to stabilize temperatures. Wood-burning stoves were a powerhouse of multitasking. They heated the home and cooked meals all from one central location. Forget flipping through Netflix in the evening. Much of family life revolved around these stoves. They didn't just pump out warmth, but became the heart of a home. A place to gather while baking bread or warming your hands after a frigid day. Lighting relied on straightforward solutions. Oil lamps filled rooms with a soft, warm glow that's almost comforting compared to today's harsh LEDs. Sure, oil lamps weren't as bright or convenient, but they got the job done, and they didn't rely on an invisible electrical grid to operate. Wax candles were another simple lighting method, offering a similar warm ambiance without making anyone dependent on modern infrastructure. When it came to tools, every bit of work relied on physical effort. But the tools themselves were ingeniously simple. Saws, hammers, hand drills, and other manual tools required human strength instead of batteries or cords. They were durable and easy to repair, unlike today's gadgets that seem programmed to self-destruct after a few years. The old tools were slow but dependable, and learning to use them wasn't optional if you wanted to accomplish anything without electricity. 2. Adapting historical solutions to modern context. The past isn't just something to admire. It can be replicated and adapted when the grid isn't there to back you up. Even in today's world, relying on electricity for everything is risky. Systems fail, outages happen, and having some non-electric workarounds is essential if you're serious about living without power. A gravity-fed water system is one of the smartest ways to secure a constant water supply. Forget electric pumps. These systems rely on height and gravity to move water from a higher point to a lower one. They can feed water to your sink, bathtub, or even a garden without needing a single watt of energy. Set up a tank on an incline or a raised tower, and you've got access to running water without relying on fragile infrastructure. With some basic piping and ingenuity, it's a water delivery method you can trust when the lights go out. Food preservation used to mean more than dumping groceries into an oversized fridge. Root cellars, for example, were like nature's refrigerators. A well-dug hole lined with wood and kept at a cool, stable temperature could preserve fruits, vegetables, and other perishables for weeks, even months. Similarly, ice houses stored blocks of ice cut from frozen lakes in winter. These chunks, insulated with straw or sawdust, lasted well into the warmer months. If you're used to running to the store every few days, learning these techniques could be a game changer. Hand-cranked tools are another no-brainer. Swap out electric gadgets for manual ones, and you'll appreciate how reliable they are. A hand-cranked radio can keep you connected to emergency broadcast without batteries. Hand-powered devices like grain mills grind flour, while manual blenders turn out purees and smoothies without needing an outlet. Sure, these tools take some effort, but that's the point. You trade convenience for independence, and that independence could make all the difference when the grid is out. Even laundry can be handled without electricity if you've got the right tools. A washboard and wringer may sound outdated, but they're surprisingly effective. Mix those with a bit of elbow grease and some biodegradable soap, and your clothes will be as clean as a machine would make them. Clotheslines can finish the job your dryer usually does, relying on sun and wind rather than an energy-hungry appliance. 3. Lessons from the Great Depression. Tough times force people to be resourceful, and the Great Depression was one of the toughest. People didn't just survive. They scraped by with grit, creativity, and a mindset that nothing went to waste. Those lessons are worth applying if you're planning to live without electricity, because wasting resources will bury you faster than the absence of power. Food preservation back then wasn't just a hobby, it was life-saving. Canning allowed people to store seasonal fruits and vegetables for months. Dried foods like beans, grains, and fruits became pantry staples that didn't rely on refrigeration. Smoking and pickling were other core methods, turning meat, fish, and veggies into long-lasting essentials. With no freezer to toss leftovers in, preservation meant the difference between eating and going hungry. Resourcefulness wasn't some trendy lifestyle choice, it was mandatory. Old clothes didn't get thrown away. They were patched, repaired, and repurposed into quilts or new garments. Tools weren't replaced the second they got dull or chipped. They were cleaned, sharpened, and used until they practically fell apart. Containers, scraps, and even so-called trash were repurposed into whatever people needed. A piece of broken furniture wasn't garbage, it was materials for repairs or fuel for the fire. When it came to stretching supplies, no one did it better than Depression-era households. Think soap, for instance. Rather than tossing out scraps, people would melt them down and reform them into new bars. It's the same story with food. Cheap, filling ingredients like potatoes, rice, or beans bulked out meals when meat or fresh produce wasn't an option. Leftovers weren't wasted but reheated and turned into entirely new dishes. Every drop of cooking grease got saved to season pans or add extra flavor to meals. Heating was another area where families did more with less. Instead of heating an entire house, they would focus on warming one main room. Stoves became the center of day-to-day life, with families huddling around for warmth in freezing weather. Insulation wasn't fancy or expensive. It was hay stuffed into walls or newspapers layered under rugs or blankets. These tactics kept heat from leaking out, reducing the need for fuel. Shared stoves were common in neighborhoods where individuals couldn't afford the fuel costs alone. A group would pitch in and share resources, using one central stove for everyone to cook, bake, and stay warm. Community cooperation made it easier to deal with the cold, a practice that modern-dwelling individuals would do well to replicate. The key takeaway from the Great Depression? Waste nothing. Fix everything. Get creative with what you have. 4 insights from Amish communities. The Amish don't just live without electricity, they thrive without it. Their way of life isn't about romanticizing hardship, it's about practicality. They've nailed down systems that work reliably, with minimal outside dependency. Modern society could take a few lessons from how they operate. Refrigeration is one area where Amish ingenuity shines. Instead of electric refrigerators, they use ice houses and ice boxes. Ice blocks are harvested during the winter months, stored in well-insulated structures, and used throughout the year to keep food cool. It's low-tech, yes, but it's also effective. No energy grid required. The ice boxes function much like a modern cooler, keeping perishables from spoiling for longer than you'd think. Cooking and heating are combined into one system for maximum efficiency. They rely on wood-burning or coal-burning stoves to prepare meals and keep homes warm. These stoves can run nearly indefinitely as long as you've got fuel, and they require zero reliance on electric or gas utilities. They're heavy-duty, built to last, and give you 3 key functions in one tool: heat, cooking, and even warming water. Lighting is refreshingly simple in Amish homes. Gas lanterns and oil lamps provide just enough light to get the job done, with a warm, functional glow that doesn't overwhelm the senses. Sure, they demand regular maintenance, like refilling fuel and trimming wicks, but that upkeep is part of the trade-off for a system that doesn't crumble during a power outage. Community support is another big deal for the Amish. They rely on shared resources, skills, and labor to make their lives run smoothly and sustainably. If someone's barn needs building, the whole community shows up to get it done. This cooperative mindset isn't just nice. It's a survival tactic that ensures everyone gets what they need. From sharing farming equipment to bartering goods and services, the sense of shared responsibility minimizes individual burdens. Lastly, there's their use of low-tech systems that get the job done without drowning in complexity. Horse-drawn buggies eliminate the need for cars or fuel. On the farming side, they rely on natural methods, like crop rotation and composting, to maintain the land's fertility without chemical inputs or modern machinery. These methods are old-fashioned, but they're also sustainable and shockproof against grid failures. The Amish don't care about trends, they care about what works. 5. Modern prepping tools. While historical techniques and Amish insights are great, there's room for modern tools in a power outage. The key is figuring out what actually helps and what's just another crutch for convenience. Some prepping tools are worth their weight in gold, but they come with limitations you have to understand. Solar panels are one of the first things people think of when they imagine off-grid energy. They harness sunlight to provide power, which sounds fantastic. But don't kid yourself. They're not some magic solution. Solar panels depend heavily on weather conditions, so you're out of luck during cloudy days or long winters. Plus, they require an initial investment that isn't cheap. Even if you have them, they won't provide enough juice to keep everything running like normal. They're useful, but only as part of a bigger system. Hand crank radios are a practical way to stay informed during emergencies. They run entirely on manual effort, so you don't need plugs or batteries. But there's a catch. Cranking gets old fast. If you're depending on one for constant updates, be ready for the arm workout of your life. Still, they're as reliable as they come in situations where communication is critical, like during storms or disasters. Power banks are another staple of modern prepping. They give you portable energy for phones, tablets, or other small devices. They seem foolproof, but remember this: power banks are only as good as your ability to recharge them. Without electricity or a functioning solar setup, they're just dead weight after a few uses. It's better to think of these as a short-term backup rather than a lasting solution. The elephant in the room with modern tools is that over-reliance on them is dangerous. People love gadgets, but too many forget that these devices all depend on some form of energy. If you're betting all your preparedness on tools like solar chargers or hand-crank gadgets, you're walking a tightrope. A true off-grid lifestyle means adaptability and resourcefulness, not just walking into a camping store and loading up on gear. Tools can help, but they're not a substitute for learning how to do things the hard way when the tools fail you. 6. Redesigning daily life without electricity. Living without electricity means you have to rethink your routines from the ground up. Every little task that you've taken for granted becomes a process. It's frustrating at first, but if you plan smartly, life can function smoothly, even with zero power. Cooking is a prime example. Forget your electric stove, microwave, or air fryer. You need alternatives, and there are plenty. A wood stove isn't just for the Amish, it's a reliable multitasker for cooking and heating. Rocket stoves are another option, using small amounts of wood to generate concentrated heat perfect for boiling water or frying food. Solar ovens might sound futuristic, but they're simple and effective on sunny days. If you really want a quicker setup, propane stoves or camp stoves can tide you over, though they bring the added challenge of securing a steady propane supply. Water systems are essential when the taps stop flowing. A gravity-fed water system ensures you have running water without needing an electric pump. Rainwater catchment is another no-brainer. Use barrels to collect rain from your roof, and you'll have a water supply for washing or even drinking if properly filtered. Manual pumps are more work, but equally effective for pulling water from wells. You can't survive long without water, so these systems should be non-negotiable. Lighting is less of a priority than cooking or water, but it's still crucial when the sun goes down. Candles are the simplest fix, though they require a stockpile since they burn out fast. Oil lamps are sturdier, offering hours of light from a small amount of fuel. And for a modern twist, solar garden lights can double as indoor lighting once the sun goes down. Simply charge them outside during the day and bring them in at night. Cleaning involves new habits, too. Laundry machines? Forget about them. A washboard and a basin of soapy water will get the job done, though your arms are in for a workout. You'll also need to replace store-bought detergents and cleaning supplies. Making natural soaps from basic ingredients like lye, grease, and essential oils isn't as complicated as it sounds, and it keeps you from relying on stuff that won't be readily available when stores are closed. Daily routines have to shift to align with daylight. Forget burning the midnight oil, unless you've got an endless stockpile of actual oil. Your productivity has to sync with the sun. Work during daylight when visibility is high, and wind things down once it gets dark. Sleeping earlier saves resources, and the natural rhythm is better for your health anyway. It's not about turning back the clock on modern life. It's about making sure you get through the day efficiently without power. Redesigning life without electricity isn't pretty or easy, but it's possible. Combine simple tools, old-school methods, and creative thinking, and you'll find ways to maintain a functional, albeit stripped-down version of life. 7. Heating and cooling without electricity. When the grid goes down, keeping your space livable is no longer about tapping a thermostat. Heating and cooling your home becomes a matter of resourcefulness and adapting to basic laws of nature. Forget convenience. It's all about survival. For heating, insulation is your best friend. Start with hay bales stacked against exterior walls. They act as an affordable, effective barrier against cold air, and you can reuse them later for gardening or animal bedding. Heavy rugs are a core tactic too, especially if you're trying to keep warm air trapped on the floor level of poorly insulated homes. Hang thick curtains or blankets over windows and doorways to stop drafts from sucking the heat out of your space. Layer these solutions. There's no such thing as overdoing insulation when you're fighting off the cold. When insulation isn't enough, heat sources like wood stoves save the day. Not only do they warm your home, but their flat surfaces double as cooking platforms. If wood supply isn't feasible, kerosene heaters or propane heaters work as substitutes, but they require consistent fuel that you have to stock up in advance. DIY heating methods like clay pot heaters are an easy, low-cost option. For these, you stack smaller pots within larger pots, light a candle beneath the setup, and the clay radiates warmth. It's as simple as it gets, but don't expect miracles from it in sub-zero temperatures. Cooling without electricity requires just as much strategy. Cross-ventilation is a lifesaver. Open windows or vents on opposite sides of your home to create airflow, pulling in cooler air and pushing out hot, stagnant air. Add fans if you've got manual crank options available. Evaporative cooling is another hack. Hang wet sheets in front of open windows. The passing air evaporates the water, cooling the space naturally. It's not going to compete with air conditioning, but it's better than melting. For extra cooling, place shallow pans of water throughout the room. The water surface steals heat from the air as it evaporates, offering slight but consistent cooling. Don't forget about geography within your home. Basements or underground storage areas act as natural cool zones. Use these spaces during the hottest parts of the day. On scorching nights, consider sleeping outdoors if you have a safe, shaded area. Nature's wind will do a better job of cooling you than any fanless bedroom. 8. Food preservation techniques. Food preservation isn't just a skill, it's a necessity when living without electricity. Your fridge and freezer won't be running, so you need reliable, long-term methods to keep food edible. Ignoring this can mean wasting supplies you can't afford to lose. Root cellars are an old-school but highly effective solution for storing perishable goods. Dig an insulated underground or partially submerged chamber to maintain a consistent, cool temperature. Root cellars are ideal for vegetables, fruits, and even dairy products. The cool and humid environment prolongs freshness naturally, without needing a single watt of energy. Fermentation is another standout technique. Not only does it preserve food, but it enhances flavor and even nutritional benefits in some cases. Ferment vegetables like cabbage into sauerkraut or cucumbers into pickles. Wine, yogurt, kombucha, and sourdough bread are other foods that thrive off this preservation method. The best part? It's virtually passive once you set it up. Dehydration halts bacterial growth by pulling moisture out of foods like fruits, vegetables, and meats. A sunny, arid climate is the perfect setting for sun-drying produce on racks or stringing up herbs. If the weather doesn't cooperate, DIY dehydrators heated with a small fire or solar heat can get the job done. Smoking and salting meat is a classic preservation technique for a good reason. The smoke inhibits bacterial growth and adds flavor, while salt draws moisture from the meat, effectively curing it. Both methods take practice, but can extend the shelf life of fish, beef, pork, or game for months at a time. If you've got hunting or fishing as part of your survival plan, this skill is non-negotiable. Canning is another method that's worth learning inside and out. By sealing food in jars and heating them to kill off bacteria, you create a vacuum-sealed environment where food can last for years. Jams, sauces, soups, and pickled vegetables can all be canned. The catch? You need jars, lids, and heat to pull off this method, so stock these supplies in advance. Food rotation is a simple but overlooked trick to minimize waste. Always use the oldest stored items first and place new supplies behind them. This ensures nothing sits too long and goes bad, even with seemingly endless shelf-life foods like grains or canned goods. It's all about managing inventory so nothing gets forgotten or ruined because you were unorganized. 9. Mental and lifestyle shifts. Living without electricity demands more than adjusting systems. It requires a complete mental shift. Modern life has conditioned us to expect instant gratification and effortless convenience. Without power, you're forced to embrace a slower, more deliberate pace. It's not glamorous, but it will change the way you approach basic survival. The first thing you'll need to accept is that everything takes longer. Cooking? It's not just tossing something in the microwave. It's gathering wood, prepping ingredients, and waiting for heat to do the job. Cleaning? Forget dishwashers or laundry machines. Washing by hand takes effort. Preserving food? It's not as simple as shuffling items into the fridge. You'll spend time canning, salting, ordering whatever you just harvested. The key to surviving isn't just ticking tasks off a list, but building your day around them. These are your new routines, and you're going to need a lot of patience and planning. With no internet, TV, or flashy apps for constant distraction, your focus shifts. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Without modern technology hogging your attention, you'll likely find yourself more focused on the moment and tasks at hand. Community bonds and personal relationships tend to strengthen when distractions are stripped away. Conversations grow longer, and shared work becomes a deeper experience. It's a quieter life, but it's undeniably more connected. This lifestyle isn't for the lazy. It demands discipline and foresight. Want to stay warm in winter? You'll need to chop wood, haul it inside, and ration it out intelligently. Need water? Studies on manual pumps, filtration systems, and rain collection need to be your top priority long before an emergency hits. Every day will be a test of your ability to think ahead and adapt. There's no margin for procrastination or guessing. Finally, this isn't just a test of utility management, but a personal challenge. Adapting to a powerless lifestyle comes with struggles. You'll fail a lot. Tasks will take longer than expected. Nights will be darker than you can imagine. And conveniences you didn't realize you depended on will no longer be there. But each failure becomes a stepping stone. You'll learn to be self-reliant and build skills that can never be taken away. It becomes less about survival over time and more about growth and simplicity, with a whole new sense of pride in knowing you can handle more than you thought possible. 10. Living without electricity. What you'll need to make it work. Living without electricity is not for the faint of heart. It's a lifestyle that demands preparation, adaptation, and a willingness to step away from modern conveniences. If you're going to make it work, you'll need a clear plan and the right tools. First, prepare to simplify your life. Living off-grid means giving up luxuries like instant hot water, glowing screens, and automated anything. You'll need to adjust to a slower pace of life, one where tasks take more time and effort. Cooking will likely require firewood or propane, and you may have to chop that wood yourself. Heating your home in winter? Same deal. Stay prepared to grind out manual tasks that electricity used to handle for you. There is no shortcut here. Either you do it or you go without. Second, you'll need to be resourceful. Without electricity, your survival depends on your ability to innovate and solve problems. For lighting, you'll rely on tools like oil lamps, candles, or solar-powered gadgets. Cooking and storing food will require alternatives like kerosene stoves and root cellars. Every challenge has a workaround, but you have to be willing to get creative. Even charging essential electronics like a phone, if you decide to use one at all, may mean relying on solar panels or car batteries. Third, relationships are essential. When electricity is out of the picture, you'll find yourself more reliant on community. You'll share tools, swap skills, and learn from others. Whether it's bartering for fresh produce or borrowing a hand-crank washing machine, living off the grid makes individualism a fantasy. Build strong connections with neighbors and prepare to lean on those networks when necessary. Finally, sustainability is both your challenge and reward. Without electricity, your environmental impact shrinks by default. However, living sustainably requires effort, from growing your own food to managing waste. Composting becomes essential. Water systems must be adapted. Think well pumps or rainwater collection. Everything you consume must be carefully planned and intentionally used. If you're wasteful, you'll regret it. Living without electricity is not glamorous. It's gritty, demanding, and perpetually challenging. But for those willing to put in the work, it offers unmatched rewards, peace, resilience, and a connection to life's essentials. Know what you're getting into, and prepare to adapt in ways you never thought necessary.